What is up, everybody? Welcome back to 9 to 5 Gamers, and today is Top 10 Thursday, which doesn't have the same ring as Top 10 Tuesday. But the reason we chose to do this video today is because today is the 1-year anniversary or 1-year birthday of the channel. Even though the channel existed before, technically, because I used to do like video game streaming and stuff, but now I'm into board games, and maybe I'll bring back the video game stuff one day. Let me know in the comment section if you'd be interested in watching me play some video games. But today is a special head-to-head top 10 video. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the very first video that I ever produced, which was my top 10. It looked absolutely horrible, and we are going to compare my top 10 list from then to my top 10 list for today. And so we're gonna go head to head, and we're gonna see what we think of each of these. And in the comment section, let me know what was a game that you loved but maybe have cooled on, and maybe you don't see it the same after a year or two. So let's take a look at my top 10. Without further ado, let's get into it. Don't forget to do all that good stuff of liking, comment, and subscribing, because it helps the channel to grow. And one thing that helps my channel to grow even more is becoming a member. Memberships are as low as $3 a month. With all that said, let's get out of this spiel and get into the good stuff. This is why you're here. So last year in 2023, my first video that I did my top 10 of, my number 10 was Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. And this is, if you've never played the game, it is basically just a really cool miniatures game. It's an adventure style game, kind of like a dungeon crawl. Really cool. It's app driven. Really like the game. Now, this year, though, it did not make my top 10 list. It's actually been passed up by quite a few games. As a matter of fact, let me check my list real quick. 7 games on my top 10 from are new from last year. 7 games have been replaced from my top 10. So Lord of the Rings has been bumped down, and up in 10th place is Heat Pedal to the Metal. And this game came out like, what, I think last year? Well, last year was 2023, so I think it came out maybe in 2022. But it was a good game. I couldn't get my hands on it. It was hard to find. And finally, when I did, I started to play it, and I was like, yo, I love this game. But as I've played it more, the more I really enjoy this game. Even people in my friend group that I usually play games with, that they're more so into like the party games, they love Heat Pedal to the Metal. Like, everybody that I've played this game has absolutely had a blast playing it. And so Heat Pedal to the Metal is my number 10. Great card racing game where you have like a board, and you've got all these different cars that you're racing, or you have your own car that you're racing with. But it's got this cool deck building game, but it's not really deck building. Like, it's so interesting the way the card mechanics work, where you have a bunch of heat in your engine. You could spend that heat in order to boost and try to get ahead, and draft off people and stuff like that. Like, you can use heat from your engine to do a lot of stuff, but when you take it out of your engine, you put it into your discard pile, and it gets shuffled into your deck. So the things that you're building into your deck are not necessarily good cards, even though there's some expansions that have some of that stuff. But man, Heat is great. So that's my number 10. My number 9 last year was Terraforming Mars. I got the Prelude expansion. Haven't even really played it or gotten a chance to use the expansion yet to see if it increased my enjoyment of the game. But I still love Terraforming Mars, still want to play it some more and get more plays of it. But a game that made it to number 9, which was a shock for me as I'm going through, I was doing the Pub Meeple rankings, and the way that I did it this time around was that I took 20 games that I absolutely love, that I'm like, all of these have top 10 potential, and I put them in Pub Meeple, and I only did those 10. I'll do my top 100 later on in the year, and that's going to change probably by then. But the number 9 game was actually Milli Fiori. So if you've ever played this game, it is a phenomenal game, and basically you're like glass makers, and you're creating different types of glass, and you get these little tiles that you're going to place on the board in different locations. You get cards, and those cards are what lets you place in different spots. Kind of like Dune Imperium, when you have a card and it lets you place a worker in certain spots by playing the card. In this game, it's like, I'm going to play a card into this zone, and then it's drafting, so you end up passing those cards away, and you get a hand of new cards, and then you have to pick which area am I going to place one of my pieces of glass, and you get points depending if you make like little triangles in certain spots, spots. Some certain spots, it's like if you can get 3 or 4 in a row, you'll get the high bonus. And man, you can score a lot of points in this game. I mean, you're just kind of like lapping the board. And they came out with an expansion for it, which I haven't gotten my hands on. But Millefiori has been one of my favorite experiences of all time. And it's my number 9 in my top 10 games, which I would have never seen coming, to be honest with you. It's such a good game. Number 8 is on last year's list. Number 8 was Dune Imperium. On this year's list, it is Cthulhu Death May Die. So I still love Dune Imperium, still a really good game, but Cthulhu came in and has taken up this 8th spot. Because, man, Cthulhu Death May Die is so good. Like, it's a scenario-driven game, but the scenarios are so intriguing. I think that was one of the things that I liked about it, because at some point I was comparing Marvel Zombies with Cthulhu. And although Marvel Zombies has, and Zombicide in general, has more scenarios to play, I feel like all the scenarios are basically the same. It's like, grab the objectives, eat the people, and you win the game. And I'm like, every objective is the same. In this game, it feels very different. Like, each scenario is very different in what you're trying to do, and you're trying to put out fires. Some of them you're trying to start fires. Some of them you're trying to... It's so cool, the different scenarios and the different goals and the objectives and what you're trying to do. I feel like there's a lot more to this game than there is to Zombicide, even though I feel like they kind of play similarly. It's just a really, really good game, and I love the power system and the ranking up system and the insanity track, and how the more insane you go, the more powerful you became, but the more likely it is that you might die. Like, Cthulhu Death May Die is hyped up for all the right reasons. It is a fantastic game, and it has become my number 8 on the list. My number 7 last year was Marvel United. Marvel United's a great miniatures game. You're kind of just walking around these 6 little spots. It's cool. This year, it's actually been bumped off my top 10 list and has been replaced with Blood on the Clocktower. And I'm not comparing these games where I'm like, they're the same game. That's not what we're trying to do here. But what I'm doing is I'm comparing what was my 7 back then and my 7 this year. My 7 this year is Blood on the Clocktower. There's no way that Blood on the Clocktower didn't make my top 10. I have played that game probably more than any other game in my collection. Although it's been a minute since I've been able to get a group together to play it again, I've been finding that rather difficult. But Blood on the Clocktower is phenomenal. And the thing is that all I've done is storytell. I haven't even gotten a chance to play it. But the art of storytelling in and of itself is just a reward to me. Like, everybody else is having a great experience, but I'm having an even better experience getting the powers, mixing the powers together and saying, man, where can I create some conflict and some tension? Where can I create an opportunity for people to argue? And where can I create an opportunity where this team can actually get a leg up on the other? And how can I manipulate the... Man, it's so much fun to be a storyteller. It's a little work, but it's not that bad. Hey, man, if you need me to do Blood on the Clocktower for your friend group and you live in Central Florida, let me know. I'd be down to come down to you guys. You know, I only charge like $600 per night. Just joking. But yeah, Blood on the Clocktower is just amazing, man. I love it. It's a social deduction game, but it's just so cool because everybody has a definitive role, unlike Werewolf, where you have to kind of lie and hope that nobody else is the seeker or the seer. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm the seer, and it's like, no, I'm the seer. They're the werewolf, and you can kind of manipulate the information. But Blood on the Clocktower, it's like, if you say you're the soldier, it's because there's no soldier in the game, and so everybody has to believe it. Very, very good. Love that social deduction. My favorite social deduction game of all time is Blood on the Clocktower for sure. My number 6 last year was Gloomhaven. Everybody who plays board games should know kind of what Gloomhaven is. It's probably revered as the best dungeon crawler to exist on the market. This year it has been replaced with another dungeon crawler that I think is going to fly under the radar for a while. And it's a shame because it's a really good game, and that's Artisans of Splendent Vale. I have a group that we play with, and we've played both Gloomhaven and Artisans, and man, Artisans was just so much easier to get to the table. Oh my gosh, like, that game is so easy to get to the table. There's hardly any setup that you need to do. With Gloomhaven, you have to set up all of the tiles and things like that. And Jaws of the Lion kind of resolved that by doing that, but there's still a lot of extra little pieces. And this game is really not a ton of stuff. And it's so satisfying because the story, I will argue this, and I don't know, people may disagree. I think the story in this game is probably better written than Gloomhaven is. Like, Gloomhaven is good. Like, a lot of the story that you get is mainly just kind of like in the cards and stuff like that. It's got a somewhat of a story, and it's got the narration, and it's cool. But man, the story of Artisans is very intriguing. The characters are a lot more complex and depth into their characters. You could tell they put a lot of time and effort into this game. And I have a feeling that just because of the art style and the way that the game looks, it does not give off like the dark vibes that I think a lot of people look for in a dungeon crawler. But this one's really cutesy, and let me tell you something, it's anything but cute and cuddly. Like, it's got some dark stuff in it, man. Like, I mean, to the point where one of my characters was literally can like touch things and get glimpses of the future and stuff like that, or can actually see the past of that object, but they can also touch dead bodies. And at some point I touched a dead body, and then I was transported into their mind, and it was insane. Like, there's some really cool stuff in here. I think Artisans is going to fly under the radar, but I'll tell you right off the bat, is one of my favorite dungeon crawlers of all time, even to the fact where Gloomhaven is not even on my top 10 anymore. So that's Artisans of Splendent Vale. My number 5 from last year was Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions, if I had to describe it, it is a hopeless LCG. A hopelessly amazing LCG. Like, it's a great game, but they have added so much content. It is suffering from bloat, where it is now this just bloated thing that just has way too much. It suffers from power creep, where I don't even want to go back and play a lot of the original characters because they just don't feel as strong as some of the new characters coming out. And that's a hard issue to tackle, especially when you're evolving a game over time. So there's a lot of issues that I have with Marvel Champions. It's gone down for a reason. I think the vast majority of people who really enjoy the game are feeling a lot of the same issues. Is that this LCG needs to come to a conclusion soon, because I feel like they just continue to come out with content, and it's making the game a lot more complex. I think that in order for Marvel Champions to have succeeded, they should have created a limited hero pool, come out with less heroes per season, and come out with more enemies, because the replay value of Marvel Champions isn't even in the characters that you play as, but in the characters you play against. I love the new introduction of new villains, and I would prefer to have more villains than more characters to play as, because I feel like there's so many of them already that it's like I don't even know who to play as anymore, and there's too much for the deck building on my end. I would prefer to have more villains to play against than for heroes to play with. But anyways, that's a completely separate video. Maybe I should do that as a video. Put it in the comment section if you want to see my opinions on Marvel Champions and what I think they can do to fix the game. But it's been replaced by Blood Rage. Blood Rage is an area control game. It is my number 5, and it is a fantastic game. It is a drafting game, but it's also area control, where you're fighting for control of the different areas in Jotunheim and different, I forget what the whole place is called, but then you've got Yggdrasil in the middle, which is that big old tree of life that they have, and it's fantastic. I love Blood Rage, and I just can't stop wanting to play it with other people. And it's very simple, like, to teach and to get people into. It's not very complicated. The complex nature of the game comes into the cards and knowing the cards. I think that's the part that can be kind of tough. It's like playing this constantly with new people is not going to be as fun as playing with people who know how to play and memorizing the cards and going, hey man, this is how we can play this game. It's just, you don't have to teach people. They kind of know what cards exist, and they know how to draft better, and what strategies to build, and that's what makes that game really fun. Really love Blood Rage, one of my favorite games. That's why it's my number 5. My number 4 last year was Ark Nova, but actually my number 4 this year was my number 8 from last year, which is Dune Imperium. So Ark Nova has been replaced with the number 4 slot with Dune Imperium. Dune Imperium has slowly crept its way up to the top 10 from the 8th position to the 4th, and that is because Dune Imperium is crazy good. Like, it is absolutely fantastic, and I absolutely love playing Dune Imperium. I know with the expansions it makes it even better, but Dune Imperium is this amazing worker placement deck building game, which the two combinations work so well together. I love those two mechanics together. I wish more games would do those two mechanics. I think there was like 3 of them that came out around the same time: Endless Winter, Arnak, Dune Imperium. Dune Imperium is my clear favorite. The new Uprising, I'm excited to get it, even though I already have it. I don't necessarily need Uprising, but I would like to get a copy of it because I'd like to see how those sandworms play and different mechanics and stuff like that. But yeah, I love Dune Imperium. That's why it's my number 4. My number 3 last year was Le Havre, and Le Havre is great. I still absolutely love Le Havre. I would play Le Havre any day of the week if you asked me. But Le Havre has been dethroned and has been replaced by Kemet as my number 3. Kemet, the fact that I love Kemet more than Blood Rage was actually kind of a shock to me, but I would rather play Kemet because of the different powers and the different not the different gods. The gods are all the same. They have the same tracks and stuff, but it's how you build with the different white, black, red, and blue tiles, the different powers that you get from that. And it's such a like chess-like, a good comparison for Kemet would be Ankh, but man, Kemet is so much better than Ankh. I think Kemet is just the premier game from that trilogy of games, including Cyclades and Inish. Inish was cool, but man, Kemet is just so much better than Inish. I cannot believe that there are people out there that enjoy Inish a little bit better, but I don't think Inish is a bad game, but Kemet is really, really good. I love the area control. I love the map. I love how the map can fit different groups of people. They solve that issue that most games suffer from, where it's like, hey man, we're doing a game where it's area control, but with 2 people, this game sucks. You know what I mean? Have you ever played like an area control game with 2 people and it's kind of like there's no conflict? It's like you're doing your own thing, I'm doing my own thing, and whoever does it better wins. Whereas I like when it's a smaller map because it condenses and it's like I have to invade your space in order to win. It causes that conflict that you need, and that's what keeps a game plateauing and makes the game good. And so a lot of those other games suffer from that because they got these big huge maps and it's like I can just do my own thing without messing with anybody. This game, there's little sandstorms that you put out that force you guys to go head to head. So whether you're playing with 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter. Kemet is just always good, and that's why it's my number 3. My number 2 last year was Spirit Island. Spirit Island is an amazing game, but that actually got pushed off my list and didn't even make my top 10. Spirit Island has been pushed off, and it was replaced with my number 1 game from last year, which went down 1, which is Root. The Root was my number 1 game from last year, but it got pushed down to 2nd place, and Root is fantastic. You know, everybody knows how much I love Root. I love Root, and Root will never be a bad game for me. And since it's my number 2, I'm just going to leave it there because it was my number 1 last year, so I'm actually going to talk about my number 1 this year, which Root was my number 1 last year, but this year Root is not my number 1. It has been replaced by Ark Nova. That's right, Ark Nova went from 4th place to 1st place. And let me explain why Ark Nova has taken over Root and why Root is no longer my number 1 game of all time and Ark Nova is. And that's because Ark Nova got added to BGA. And that right there alone made Ark Nova so much more accessible to me. And now, granted, there is an app for Root, which is, I would say, even better than playing Ark Nova on BGA. But Ark Nova is just so thinky and so good. Like, Root is thinky, but Root requires too much. Ark Nova doesn't. Root, you really need somebody who knows how to play Root to play Root, you know, functionally. Like, if I want to play Root, I need a bunch of people who already know how to play, and we're going to be here for hours playing this game. And it's going to be great. But getting that group together is a lot more difficult than Ark Nova is. Ark Nova has a lot going on, but Ark Nova, I feel like I can at least teach it to new people and still have a competitive game. I feel like Ark Nova has this thick stack of cards, so it's never the same. And with the expansion that they added, it added some extra things to the game that make the game very, very playable, very, very awesome. But now it's on BGA, it makes it even more accessible to people. And I think the stats don't lie. Like, people love Ark Nova. It is a great game. There's so many people out there that aren't this like Ark Nova hate train. Like, Ark Nova is overhyped. It's overrated. Bro, people play it a lot. It's like, for a while on the BGA, like, hotness or whatever, it's like whenever they go over the stats for like how many people are playing, how many hours of what, Ark Nova is constantly up there. Maybe that's because Ark Nova takes like 3 or 4 hours to play around, but I always get a lot of heat for saying that. But it is really good. I love Ark Nova. I constantly want to play it. I can play it solo. I can't play Root solo. I can play Root solo if I play on the app, but I'm still playing against people, and if those people are really good, I'll just get crushed. and my dreams will be gone. But Ark Nova, I feel like I can play by myself, and there's multiple variants for solo play for Ark Nova, which make it really, really good. There's the Arno variant, and there's the one that comes in the game. It's just, I think Ark Nova just, for me, has already kind of gotten to that point where it's like, man, honestly, if I had to choose between the two, I think Ark Nova would edge over Root because it's a little bit more accessible to me and a little bit better, in my opinion. But I really love Ark Nova, man. It is slowly crept up to my #1 spot. But who knows, man? Ark Nova might go down if the right game makes its way back up. Some of these games are really, really good, but I love all these games on this list. And there was a whole list of 10 other games that didn't make my list, but that's going to be for members. So if you're a member, you'll be able to see the other 10 games that didn't quite make the top 10, but they're like the top 20. That video is going to be coming out for members, so you can look forward to that soon. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.